we're at the hour, I suppose.
Here we go. Good morning. Welcome to Overdose and Chill Live. I'm Iestyn. I'm the MD for Overdose Southeast Asia. And today we're joined by Neel Bhatt, who is Head of Plus Partnerships Southeast Asia for Shopify. Welcome, Neel.
Thanks, Iestyn. Thanks for having me. Thank you for the very nice introduction. Pleased to do this.
No, it's a pleasure to have you. Obviously, it's a slightly different setting to our usual setting for such conversations, but hopefully we can keep things pre-watershed.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like normally a few beers in, and I know that's the usual setting for Overdose and Chill, right? So I have to, maybe the conversation will be different when we've not had a few beers. Who knows?
Yes, we could uncover some new and startling insights.
No, exactly. But no, I think this is a great format. I think we don't do enough of this, especially these days. Like even internally in Shopify, now that we have gone, digital by default, digital by design, and we don't have offices around the world. Even our intercompany communication, you have to be so deliberate about setting time aside for like unstructured conversation that you would normally just have in the office, either like after work, going for a drink, or just running into someone in the office. I think this is a great little initiative that you guys have.
Awesome. Well, yeah, and it's great to have you. Obviously, we've had a really good kind of 18 months as well with you guys, so it's great to have you on here, and obviously lots to talk about. I think for the folks watching, please go ahead and drop any comments or questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. So I guess it's been a big couple of weeks for you and all the team at Shopify.
Yeah, it has been. I mean, I think we Unite it's always a big date in the calendar, and we knew we'd had a lot of feedback in the past, and last year we did Reunite, which was open to all. But this year we really wanted to go back to kind of getting developers to love working with the platform again. So that was kind of the high level strategy in terms of what we wanted the event to be. And then once we had that, we realized that actually from a feature set and what we were looking to communicate, it all kind of fell into place from there. And there were some really exciting announcements that I've had to kind of keep under my hat for the last 3 to 6 months, sometimes even longer.
You've done well.
And normally, when a project comes up and you kind of think in the back of your head, we have this thing coming soon, I can't really talk about it. Really big couple of months for us, and off the back of an insane 2020, and I was personally really excited by a lot of it and what the implications are for particularly this region. In Southeast Asia, and how it will let us expand and kind of further penetrate the market in certain markets where we're a little more nascent. And importantly, it continues to it does that typical Shopify thing of stretching up market, but then making some of those enterprise-y features available for smaller businesses to start kind of thinking about and start figuring out how they're going to implement. I was really enthusiastic by it. I really enjoyed the Discord servers and Toby kind of going on with the live AMA. I think that was a great idea. I think what wasn't a great idea was having a bunch of us. I say because I didn't like doing it, but being up at 2-3 a.m. on those Discord servers as it was being broadcast live. But I did my best to pretend that I wasn't actually watching the football. So I think it worked out well all around.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably quite convenient at this time of year.
Yeah. It was, and it was a good game as well. Good game, good Unite. It was a good night, basically. Yeah.
And what are your plans for the match on? I guess it's Sunday, so it's 3 a.m. Monday morning Singapore time, right?
Yeah, they're the killers. I think. I don't know. I haven't really thought that far ahead. I think, given if it was midnight or something, I'd probably have a few mates around and have some beers. But at 3 a.m., I'd want to kick everyone out of my apartment immediately afterwards, and it's quite rude. So like, I'm probably not going to do that. I think, just a few quiet ones, and see how we go. And depending on the result, maybe I'll take Monday off. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about yourself?
Well, I must admit, I was quite disappointed for Wales to go out in the manner that they did, but part of me was also slightly relieved that I didn't have to stay up late for the knockout stages.
Yeah.
But what I tend to do these days is just kind of go dark and then watch it in the morning with all phones disabled and all comms disabled. But can't quite do the 3 a.m. kickoffs like I used to.
I've never been able to nail that, and for some reason, there's always a notification, there's always a message, there's always something that penetrates that wall, and then I just cave and I just check, because I do this. I'm a big Liverpool fan, so I do that with Liverpool games that I can't stay up for if I've got like a big day at work the next day, and it's the same. I've never been able to do it. So if you've got any tips, man, please do share. Sometimes
it's actually quite a relief, especially if you've spent the first half doing really badly. I'm like, oh God, thank God for that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So very convenient then. And I guess going back to Shopify Unite, I think loads of really awesome stuff in there actually. I mean, everyone at Overdose is super pumped about a lot of the news. Obviously the devs are very excited. But I think the more you think about it, there's some really nice stuff kind of outside of just what developers would get excited about, and stuff that seems like it would be awesome for the Southeast Asia region. So I think the 0% revenue share annually, I mean, that's a big move, right?
Yeah, it was. And I think, and that's definitely the announcement that made the biggest wave, because for a lot of businesses, it was just instant money, essentially. And we did it because like, it does affect Shopify. Like we lose some revenue, but it's not material. And what it will mean is more developers attracted to the platform because of that. Because of that initial windfall that they're able to kind of take advantage of if they build a successful app. And we do it because it will just keep enriching the platform. That's kind of what we want. I mean, that's what makes Shopify what it is. It's the partner network and the solutions that are built around it. And so it makes sense for us to kind of continue investing in that. And I think like it's I think it's had some really nice outcomes. Like I know some partners who have just passed those extra earnings on to their employees, which is just great. These are the sorts of the stories that you want to hear. So there are partners who have given employees pay rises. There are partners that have discounted their apps instead, so pass those savings on to the merchants. And we all know in trying to build and scale an agency, whether it's building applications or selling services or both, like it's hard. And it's a tough ask. You're constantly fighting for business, and you're always proving your worth. So any little extra on that P&L always helps. So I loved that particular announcement, and I really like the way in which I saw it kind of manifest out in the industry. And yeah, there's a bunch of good stories that come out of that. But I mean, does it, like, in addition to that though, the online store 2.0 was a big release. I think the most exciting for me from a Shopify Plus lens in that release was just the speed, the new speed and capability of that thing, because we always know that extra seconds on a website, extra load times, just conversion rates just start to drop off. And we know, particularly in the way in which we're structured and where our servers are hosted, we have some challenges in this region. So to have that boost and like start receiving 99% Google speed reviews, that's really exciting.
Yeah, everyone's been getting very excited about that. And going back to the 0% revenue share as well, I think one thing I really liked about that was, in a world where app stores and marketplaces are going in the other direction and kind of squeezing the sellers more, it's really refreshing to see someone kind of take a bold approach and do the opposite. So fair play on. Yeah,
like I got an email from, I think it was Tech in Asia or something. That was, and I forwarded it to our comms guy, and I was like, oh, look, we've got some coverage. That's nice. And it was about one of our merchants. And then I scrolled down, and then it was about some of the Unite announcements, and they were covering some of the things that TechCrunch had covered. And one of the things they said in that article was, Shopify have made this move, and following Apple and Google have made similar moves. And I was like, I didn't know that they did that. So I looked into it, and it was the difference between what we've done and what Apple and Google did. They were kind of court mandated to drop their fees, right? The reason that they did that was they were
the same, is it?
It's not the same. Yeah, exactly. And they dropped it from like 20 to 15 if you were a small business in this certain circumstance, and that was kind of like regulation based. And I know there's been some quite public. There's been a lot of public disputes with Apple in particular because of the closed ecosystem that they have. And like there was the founder of Basecamp. He also set up this email platform called Hey. I don't know if you've heard of it. But Hey was essentially this play at taking control of your email again. And so every time you get a new email into this inbox, you know, it's a nightmare for marketers because it strips out every tracking pixel, and it asks you if you want to receive emails from this person now and in the future, and you have to approve every email. And so so it was a paid app, and it was, you know, incredibly popular, particularly in the tech community. And he got into a huge public dispute with Apple about the fact that he was forced to kind of bill through the App Store and pay that commission and so on and so forth. And you can see that, like, especially in that space with such closed ecosystems, regulation is coming, and that's why they kind of made those moves. Shopify isn't so closed; like you can build anything you want on the Play Store, but the App Store is just another channel. So yeah, I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And so online store 2.0. Obviously, we've very, very excited about that at Overdose, and you know we're talking to some of our clients about it already. What do you think within that? What are the real kind of game changers there? That I guess some of those things that you've managed to not tell me about at 1 a.m. Well done for that.
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously we have I don't know whether the team has managed to play with the new theme, the default theme Dawn, and because it's such a big change, so we're going to have to. It will take a while for everybody to. I mean, the magic of our partner network is they figure out the best of what our platform offers better than we do more often than not. Like the reason that we, you know, in our team, we always kind of advocate for our amazing partners is they know, you know, they often know how to get the best out of the platform, how to get the best out of the theme, the ins and outs of it, the best integrations or the best way to manage integrations. And so we feel it will be the same with Online Store 2.0. But like I said, I think the main thing for me is definitely the speed and the speed boost that has come with it. The obvious, there was a bit of a meme which I didn't really get around sections everywhere. Like this, I'm not a developer, right? Like, so I don't really. And the only store I've built is my own, which is a very rudimentary store. But I think like if you compare Dawn to Debut, which was the original default theme, there's a lot more custom liquid sections that allow you to kind of inject code directly from the themes editor contained within the section rather than doing code edits in the code editor. So from a usability standpoint, it's already a lot easier to customize and develop. You're allowed to, you know, you can reference page sections within your content and your coding. And there's some, you know, kind of, there's a lot more in there in terms of collages and multi-columns and facet filtering. And importantly, kind of alongside that was obviously the meta field announcements as well. Meta fields have always been a kind of pain point for everybody, but you know, it's still, you know, we rolled it out to partners first because we want, you know, we need to figure out how to get the best out of it. We'll continue to improve it, and you know, we're really excited to see what everybody comes up with. I mean, have you guys had a chance to? I mean, what are the big things that you guys have seen so far?
Yeah, definitely meta fields. Obviously, you know, sections everywhere. I think it's got everyone very excited because you know, all the things that you could do on the homepage, you can now do everywhere. And obviously, it makes it super modular, so you can just move stuff around within the site. And also, what's really nice for merchants, I think, is that it makes it easier for the smaller merchants, I guess, to maintain the site themselves. You know, obviously previously, I guess, full control over the homepage, but maybe it gets a bit harder as you go into some of the other key pages. But now it's all an open book. And Metafields, definitely the guys are really keen on. I think it just gives a lot more flexibility in terms of what data you can populate where, and there'll be some exceptions, but for the most part, you won't need any kind of third-party app now to render that, which is really exciting and helps with the speed, of course.
Yeah, that's it. And I think like you said, it makes it easier. And what it does is kind of always democratizing like certain e-commerce features and making them easier to use. And then like the larger businesses, particularly again on Plus, they can focus their efforts in other places, like on growth, on the things that matter, and the things that they know, and partners too can focus on different areas rather than these sorts of optimizations. So that's why, like for me, again in particular, in the role I play at Shopify, that's I always look at it from a Plus lens. Like it's a force of habit, but that's what I was in particular excited about. It just means more diverted focus, and because particularly in Southeast Asia, we still have a lot of. I don't mean Shopify. I mean e-commerce has a lot of catching up to do. It's the rest of the world in terms of what we expect, what we deem as good, the effort we put in, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think for Southeast Asia, I mean, one of the things that I'm particularly excited about with the news from Unite is it's kind of on two levels, really. It makes it easier for smaller merchants to manage stores on their own and kind of really leverage them. But it also makes it easier for kind of the early enterprise guys to focus more on growth, CRO, scaling, than just kind of maintaining the status quo. So I love the fact that it works for both ends of the market, and it should just bring everyone up together to a more ambitious and successful level of e-commerce. Yeah,
like we always say, in particular, when we're working or we're pitching a merchant, right, and they're looking at other platforms, one of the things we'll always say in our pitch materials and everything is, whilst sometimes Shopify Plus can be cheaper, right? Like it's, compared to some of our competitors. But the point isn't, you take that money, you put it in your pocket. The point is you take that, you invest it in other areas to drive growth for your business. So instead of spending it on maintenance or kind of these sorts of refinements, you just chuck it into growth, chuck it into SEO, throw it into more campaign-based work, work with a partner that will kind of help direct your energies in that way. And you're just kind of reallocating your budget and using it in a better way rather than kind of shoving it all into a license. And that's I think been a key value proposition of ours that we try and communicate. It doesn't, sometimes a merchant will do what they want, right? Like if you, same with our reduced commission on the App Store. Like there will be some businesses that say, yeah, cool, that just go on the balance sheet and we'll take that, and some will kind of pass it on in different ways, and we can only kind of advise, but that's exactly it. Like we're always looking to drive merchants to do that in this region as well, because they're not necessarily always used to doing it, particularly if they come from a marketplace background, and that battlefield is completely different. And there's a lot less effort, but a much higher cost associated with kind of doing that. So yeah. I mean, I could bitch about marketplaces all day, but I'll try not to.
No, we can definitely get to that. I think, I mean, certainly that, some of the things we talked about already, I can see as being a way of maybe, challenging some of that marketplace dominance and really, reducing the barriers, if you like, to merchants who are kind of marketplace first, and perhaps making it more attractive to them to have a dual strategy with a brand.com. But there's some other stuff in there, I think, that is really key in that battlefield, if you like. So, extending the checkout with apps, the updates or was it custom storefront or updates to storefront API, which is very exciting.
Yeah. So one thing. So the updates to checkouts. Again, what we did is checkout customization was always only available for Plus merchants. What we did is we made some really basic customizations available to all merchants through apps. And that's really exciting. And then what we've done in addition to that is there's a lot more sophistication in terms of customization that can be done with Plus merchants at checkout, and that includes what we're doing with scripts. So I think one of the things that I found, particularly in this region, is when we're talking to merchants who've not really had to build something like this before, they don't necessarily know how best to take advantage of scripts as a feature, and day-to-day usage of it becomes really difficult. And then it also becomes, from a partner's perspective, deploying those scripts and selling that service can be quite difficult as well, because you're just selling code snippets essentially, and it can be quite difficult to modularize. And so the way in which scripts can now be deployed as an app to the merchant to use on a day-to-day basis just opens up a lot more options for partners to be able to sell script packages as part of their services. And the same goes for the checkout customizations. And then all of that combined with the GitHub integration, which I think is a bit of a godsend, to be honest. I'm surprised it took us this long to do it. I think there's a lot of kind of exciting things in there, and we've been beta testing Scripts 2.0 for a while, and we know in certain sectors that it still needs work, and if we want to target it in certain ways, we still need to improve it. But I think one of the big challenges was always usability on the merchant end, and if it's difficult to use, whether you're selling it as a partner or as Shopify, it's difficult to use. It's difficult to understand why you need to buy it, and I think that's going to be key for us as we continue to sell that value proposition here.
I mean, that new theme editor, I think even I could now actually build a store using that, to be honest with you. But yeah, scripts in checkout. So obviously Shopify, super flexible, awesome platform. I think probably the checkout was the kind of last area that perhaps wasn't as customizable as the rest of the store. Yeah. So you know that's kind of the final piece that gives you, I guess, end-to-end flexibility. So you must be really excited about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll always be more restricted of checkout, because it sounds draconian to say, but like we know, and we always advise, right? We always advise that, we look into, we have 1.7 million merchants doing billions of transactions. And whilst we see all the conversion data, we see all the conversion metrics across all those checkouts around the world. And that allows us to build, in our opinion, and in my opinion, to be honest, even as a consumer, maybe I'm biased, I don't know, but I think it is the best checkout experience on the internet, because it's just so easy, it's so quick. When I'm online and I need to buy something, and I see and it's using Shopify checkout, I find it so much easier. I don't know why. I'm probably biased because of, I've got Shopify stock, all that stuff. But like, I think it's optimized for that. So the reason it's always been restricted to a certain degree is because we advise against it, because it's sometimes there are reasons for doing heavy customization, but a lot of it structurally we always believe should follow that flow, because we found it just converts the best compared to other checkout experiences. That being said, we can't just continue to say we know best, and you have to do as we say, particularly as brands just want to have a little bit more point of difference, and the checkout experience, if you're not customizing it to add your brand identity, then I can see why that can be a point of friction. So kind of you can see what Shopify does is they get to a certain point, they grow, and then they get this feedback, and they feel these friction points in the market, and then they'll just go and address it in a Shopify way, and doing it with checkout customization, and still keeping it as the full complex customization as a plus feature, but just making some small elements of that available to the rest of the merchants. That's like a very Shopify thing to do. And all those people that say, oh yeah, all Shopify stores look the same, blah blah blah. It's all nonsense. And the last kind of part of that was checkout. So nobody can really say that anymore.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And what about I know it's obviously it's custom storefront, isn't it, rather than headless, but essentially that is headless.
Yeah, exactly. That I was really excited about. That was kind of the main event for me. And we split it into two. in that we called it custom storefronts and the expanded storefront API. I think what was most exciting was also the removed API call rate limits on the storefront API. That's always been a big pain point for people looking to build headless implementations. Shopify's official stance has always been we support headless. But in the past, we knew if you're doing headless on Shopify, you're not making the most out of the platform. The value proposition changes slightly, and we don't have the same offering. And so some of these changes to storefront API, the increased API call rate limit, and some of the endpoints that we're going to be making available over the coming months, I'm really excited about, because it makes headless a much more viable value proposition on Shopify. And that combined with Toby's sort of Steve Jobs, one more thing moment at the end of Unite around hydrogen and oxygen coming next year. That's going to be super exciting, because Shopify's big value prop, particularly on Plus, is just that scale. The 10,000 transactions a minute, the huge amounts of volume that the platform can manage. The challenge with headless is you then have to take that back on yourselves as hosting and managing that scale. And hydrogen and oxygen allowing you to build and then host that on Shopify servers is like a game changer for me. And it makes headless just a far more compelling proposition on Shopify than it was before. And again, in typical Shopify fashion, we call it custom storefronts because we didn't want to call it headless. I guess I don't know why. And we've made it available for smaller merchants too. Like, I think, again, on a Plus perspective, it'd probably be more viable because of all the other APIs you can make use of and all the kind of extra extensibility there. But we made it available for core merchants too. Like, if they want to really, really customize that front end and decouple it, they can do. And you can kind of see with these moves, also like the moves that have been happening over the last few years in social commerce, POS continues to kind of grow. We officially launched retail in ANZ earlier this year, and it'll be coming to the rest of APAC soon. Shopify is really gearing up to be more of a commerce operating system rather than an e-commerce platform. We still have a lot of work to do in this region, but you can see that's the direction that the company's going.
Yeah, definitely. And we have more and more existing clients, merchants who are using Shopify in an omni-channel, omni-channel ecosystem. And it's great to see a lot of these changes will just make that even more, even easier to do, but also even more, I guess, efficient's the wrong word, but even more successful. So what about hydrogen's next year? So where does that where does that put you guys, with regard to your headless or custom storefront strategy?
I think you can see.
Sorry, you go.
Yeah, like there's not so much I can say about it other than like the timelines are like end of this year, early next year. We'll be beta testing with a smaller group end of this year. So, like, on one hand, as Toby mentioned, it's a big bet on the React Native framework, which not everybody will agree with. Like, I even know some internal devs that are not necessarily, they don't know enough about React Native to, not happy, but they were surprised by that bias. Let me put it that way.
Right.
But I think one thing I've seen in my time with Shopify over the last year and a half now, is Toby and Shopify, they like to go in a direction and then fully commit. So you can see that with the fact that when the pandemic hit last year, they decided very early that we're never going back to offices. Like that was at the time for me, that was like personally a difficult thing to swallow. And for a lot of people, I know it was very difficult and everybody had personal challenges. But Shopify just committed 100%. And the fact that they committed 100% made them, it allowed us to be able to figure out, okay, if this is how we're going to work, how do we make the best of it? And how do we best enable the teams and the staff to make the best of it? So that kind of commitment it can be surprising to some, but when you're kind of inside Shopify, you see it and you expect it. You expect us to make a big bet and then just commit wholeheartedly to it. And so that's what I'm seeing with this kind of move with hydrogen and oxygen React Native. I think you can see it changes the value prop completely. Like I said, around headless, it's not. Headless isn't right for everybody, and it's not going to be the core. And I don't think it will ever be the core of what Shopify offer. This is just my opinion, because a lot of the time, in my opinion, I have to keep saying this. In my personal opinion, I think a lot of the time it's pointless, and it can be a vanity project when you hear somebody wants to do it because they just want to say, "I did a headless implementation," which is kind of fair enough. Everybody needs to like get their name out there and get a new job and kind of move around and stuff. And I can respect that hustle, but it's not really it's not right for everybody. But for some merchants, it is, and so we need to kind of continue to solve that problem. And it's become, we've seen more players move into the space, and we've seen some of our merchants really start to move in that direction and use Shopify for it. But as we've seen that, we know that we kind of know where our gaps have been, and we know what our value proposition is. And so I think the hydrogen and oxygen move, combined with storefronts, is our iteration of headless. Again, like taking advantage of Shopify's scale, and we'll kind of continue, I think, to make headless on Shopify the best version of headless on Shopify, if that makes sense. So making use of the checkout and all the other amazing tools that are available in the Shopify ecosystem, still allowing them to be used in a headless environment rather than just using it for as a kind of back-end system, so to speak.
Yeah. And I think a couple of other features that I noticed that were interesting. So, and perhaps, maybe it's not as kind of exciting as the headless stuff, but the pickup only locations. I mean, was that kind of coming anyway, or was that, like you said, it sounds like when COVID arrived, obviously the decision at Shopify to kind of switch to remote working, were there some other kind of similar, okay, this is the new normal, so these are features we need to push on with and get in place as soon as possible? Or was that kind of coming anyway?
I think it kind of came out of, so last year we rolled out curbside pickup, for example, like that was, and we started doing local delivery. And I think, particularly driven by our penetration in retail and POS, we've seen that needing to create these pickup only locations where there's not necessarily the facility to kind of do the whole hog of pick, pack, and dispatch and so on was really, really important. And so it was, whether it was something that was always coming, like I think it probably would have, but like we always said, a lot of what we saw last year informed a lot of our decisions in terms of committing to certain things this year. And so pickup only locations is it's been really, really important. In fact, I've made use of it already, and in my own little side business. So it does make a difference. And I think again, it's just more response to the pandemic to a certain degree. But as we've as our product teams continue to broaden in retail, for example, that's another problem they felt needed to be addressed. But do you see some interesting use cases on your side?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was chatting to a merchant the other day who this would be perfect for. So, obviously thrilled to know it's there now. I think it's just one of those things that perhaps previously, it might have perhaps paused or caused the merchant to pause in terms of thinking about the platform, and maybe go for something that is much bigger and more expensive than really needed, just because it didn't have that one feature. So I think again, it's another kind of step in that kind of complete, like you said, complete commerce solution that you can manage your offline store, your online store, and your delivery business, which I think is really important for certainly what we're seeing. You've got your kind of, I guess, like grocery retailers, but many of these grocery retailers now also have kind of dine-in F&B. So you start to get some complexity around order your groceries online, pre-order your meal, go to the store, pick up your groceries, eat your meal, but you've already paid for all of it. And obviously all of these features allow you to do that pretty seamlessly without kind of tons of middleware and tons of customization.
Yeah, and that's it. Like taking away about 5 steps to getting there. I think that's kind of the key, right? Like just making it simpler. And a lot of these things we see in our implementations, and you look at some of the merchants that you guys have worked on recently in this region, and and the workarounds. Shopify's always been a platform for workarounds, and you figure out the end state, and then you build backwards from there. And then we're just kind of trying to remove those barriers each time, and that's a lot of part of like how Shopify tracks product feedback, merchant feedback, partner feedback, and how we implement that into our features. So it's a big point.
Okay, starting to have some questions coming through. Before we jump into this, though, just for those that are joining midway, this is OD and Chill Live. I'm Iestyn, MD for Overdose Southeast Asia, and our guest today is Neel Bhatt, Head of Plus Partnerships Southeast Asia. So, some guy called Todd Welling, not sure who he is. Can we expect to see POS being rolled out across all of SEA?
Yeah, cheers, Todd. Thanks for that, mate. So we can, like so POS and retail is coming, but we still have some kind of we still have a lot more building to do here, but the goal is to bring all of the majority of our merchant services over into the rest of the world. So not just retail and POS, but shipping, capital, buy now, pay later, like all of these things. The goal is to get them into not just SEA but across APAC. In terms of timelines, they're always it's. As with any kind of tech company, you're just kind of doing that a lot of the time to figure out the timelines, because a lot of it is resourcing and market readiness. But we do have, we obviously have merchants using POS, but it's not an incredible experience at the moment in Southeast Asia because of all the workarounds, and we're not directly supporting it. But step one was the launch in ANZ, and then coming soon, next on that list in APAC will be Singapore, which will then be our kind of launch pad into wider SEA.
Awesome, yeah, and I think we've got a few clients on it already, so it'd be exciting to have that kind of formally supported here, and it's something that will then be, I guess you can push that as a solution right from the start. But talking of Southeast Asia, so what do you haven't you've been in the region for what, 3 years now?
5 years.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So 5 years, yeah.
So what are you seeing in terms of, I guess, trend shifts, from when you first arrived and kind of looking ahead, what you kind of see coming up? So
Southeast Asia from an e-commerce perspective is a super interesting region. Like, I think I was speaking to a member of the team internally who was moving over to our team in Southeast Asia, and just kind of giving some context. And I think when you look at it, it's always been like this weird kind of what's the meeting point for North American and Chinese tech? Like that's like just what Southeast Asia is, and so as a result, you get these, not just in e-commerce, but just in the whole digital landscape, you get these combinations of the two. So if we look at, and I don't think anybody in Southeast Asia would mind me saying this, but a lot of what is done here is taken from what has been done elsewhere, because this is just a younger economy, right? And so Rocket Internet and Lazada is a great example. So Rocket Internet, famous for being just copying stuff and launching it somewhere else and then getting a big payday. They went with the Amazon model, right? They went with the Amazon model, and it was inventory based, and it was selling against a single SKU. And then they were acquired by Alibaba, who moved them into more the Taobao model. And it was still very marketplace focused and trying to own that search. And then, a bunch of people got fed up at Lazada and set up Shopee, and they kind of did the same thing. And I think what you see is a symptom of all of that, these kind of big tech wars. And you see it with, again, like in Indonesia, you have JD and you have Alibaba both fighting there. And the investment has flooded the market, but it's manifested itself in really challenging ways. And I remember when I was considering the move out to Singapore, I was speaking with an e-commerce business, and I won't name names, but I was speaking with an e-commerce business, and they would talk to me about their challenges around raising their prices and the fact that they could only sell something when they went on sale. And what they found was if they were getting a lot of search for certain brands, but when they went and stocked those brands, they'd get no conversion, and they couldn't figure out why unless they put it on sale. And that's a really difficult behavior to get yourself out of. And I remember actually Play.com in the UK had that same issue, particularly post Rakuten acquisition. They had that same issue. They could only sell when they went on sale. People only associated them with sales. Marketplaces are the same a lot of the time now, which is why they invent sales periods, because it's like the only way they can kind of galvanize the market, because that's the legacy of e-commerce here. And Southeast Asia is kind of like a few years back in terms of where the e-commerce journey has gone, because we've all seen, you go back in the old days in the UK, it was eBay, right? Like you sell stuff on eBay, you do B stock, you keep the prices low, that's how you get the volume, and then eventually you get big enough where you have your own platform, and then you pull back and you kind of invest in that. And so we're starting to see brands do that. More and more retailers do that now. And I think it's really interesting. I have a lot of, I know that for the entire ecosystem, this investment from Alibaba, from Tencent, from Rocket Internet back in the days, in making everything free, has kind of destroyed customer expectation in this region.
Yeah, and subsequently experience as well, I would add, because obviously, if you continue to reduce the cost of the product and the cost of the sale, you end up with the most bare bones possible experience. And you can see that when you try and search for something on those platforms. But really interesting case study, though. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's kind of got those layers of, Chinese tech, North American tech, existing kind of shopper behaviors in the region, all of the different cultural nuances across Southeast Asia, which is obviously a huge region. And there's some kind of huge forces in there coming together, and you've got massive investment as well. You kind of end up with an unreal reality where normal rules don't apply, and you start to question how sustainable is that whole setup. And obviously there's a role for marketplaces, but when the marketplace is perhaps disproportionately large to the brand.coms, how long can that continue, and what's happening to the margins and the experience for customers?
I think, it's a really good point. Like, I think marketplaces will always have their place. And I always say, like, you should be on a marketplace. And sorry, I saw there was a question there from Sky. We should probably come back to that afterwards. But the marketplaces will always have their place, because it's just another channel. It should be a channel, but you shouldn't just have one channel. And at the end of the day, we're getting more and more merchants now realize that, they're investing in marketing to drive traffic to a website that they don't own, which is a marketplace. They don't have access to that customer data. And they're starting to think, well, if I acquire my customer on a marketplace, and then I can get them into an experience that I own, and they're now my customer, that is a better long-term strategy. So merchants are starting to figure that out. It's something, it's the typical life cycle of e-commerce. Like you get some growth, you then start taking e-commerce seriously, you start investing it, and then you realize as your own knowledge and sophistication about it grows, and you want to do more, you're hamstrung by what you can do on a marketplace, unless you're like a select few brands that hold all the cards, essentially. And then you realize, okay, well, I need to kind of invest in my own thing. But marketplaces should always be a channel that exists. It should be an acquisition channel. It could be for sales only, or for B stock, or, kind of whatever it may be. A lot of the time marketplaces are great for international expansion. And like, that's kind of a lot of the background that I had, was using marketplaces for a first step into a new market before investing in a full retail rollout. But they'll always have their place, I think. But what you'll see is, I do believe that a lot of it is unsustainable, but it depends on what the end game is. And I think a lot of these marketplaces, the game is not GMV, it's data. And you saw it with Uber and Grab in this region, right? Like, Uber was here, and they were just like plowing money into discounts, because that's what got people using it. And then they decided. And
SoftBank said, right, enough.
Yeah. They said, you just go with the Grab. Grab stopped doing the discounts, and everyone lost their minds. Like, and everyone started complaining, and and then Gojek had to come in, and so like, I think, they'll always have their place, but they're always going to be data plays, and that's kind of the challenge. But you're seeing it in China now. Like, China was marketplace dominated Japan particularly was marketplace dominated. Rakuten had the entire market for a long time. Amazon came in still marketplace dominated alongside Yahoo, of course. But like even over there, where it's been 10 to 15 years of marketplace dominance, brands are realizing, okay, I need to invest in my own thing and own that customer experience. So it will happen here. It's just a matter of time.
Sorry, Sky. That's one of our favourite topics. So when we get onto that, we tend to stay on it for a while. But I'll let Neel respond to your question.
Yeah. So Sky, I'm guessing you mean those features around Unite. So the majority of them are, they're all available across the plans, right? Like I think. So I come from a Shopify Plus lens, so I'm always thinking about what the impact is to large brands and enterprise. But Shopify is all about kind of making those enterprise features accessible and available to our core merchants, as we call them. And so, yeah, they are released. A lot of them, you can see the checkout customizations, for example, they're available now to all merchants, whereas before they were Plus only. But they're just available in a different way as mini apps within the App Store to implement these checkout customizations. So I think Shopify will always continue to do that. Like we'll always invest in the platform, support enterprise so that we can continue to empower entrepreneurs and small businesses and growing businesses, and whatever we can kind of roll down in a way that's easier to implement for smaller businesses. And the fact that we're, what's crazy is you can now build a headless build on Shopify and it doesn't have to be on Plus. Now it's probably not the best idea because of the different APIs that you're missing out on, but it's available now, and so that's I think that's really interesting. So yeah, you assume right, they're released similarly, but there are some limitations in place, and I say limitations, but it's more around they become easier to use, but then they're less customizable until you go into Plus, and then you can really get under the hood.
There you go. We should get back to marketplaces. Apparently, no. I'm glad you found it interesting, Sky. Yeah, we could go on about that indefinitely. I think lots of talking points there. But talking marketplaces, so the Handshake acquisition, so the wholesale marketplace, that's quite an interesting move.
Yeah, so it happened a while ago, which is, and it's been on the cards for a long time. B2B e-commerce is huge, and we know it's an incredibly fast-growing segment. And we're working on, Handshake itself still running. It's still our Shopify merchant kind of B2B marketplace. But what we're looking to do is, we'll hopefully have a little bit more to share around B2B this year, but if not next year. But I think Handshake is just another part of the supply chain of a merchant. So we're always thinking about what the merchant's problems, and we work with so many brands, and Shopify is really quite brand centric, because brands are the businesses that tend to care more about the customer experience or the telling of the brand story, and that's why they need their own platform to do so. And allowing them to have just another channel, a wholesale channel, is going to be really, really important. But B2B e-commerce as a whole is booming, and so Shopify has plans in that space. Handshake is, as you can probably guess, a part of that. And I'm personally really, really excited for when we have a little more share on that, because I think it again will be a very compelling value proposition. And B2B e-commerce is, there's a lot of people doing it, but the experience, in my opinion, there's so much penetration left to be done. If you've tried to set up your own business in certain sectors, like for myself, I think I mentioned I set up a small kind of food and F&B side business. The experience is awful. Everything's on email, and there's no easy way to manage it. And even as a buyer, forgetting if you're kind of supplying and selling to multiple businesses. And so it's very, very painful. So it's really ripe for disruption. And there's parts of it like non-enterprise B2B that are just completely ignored by the market. Yeah. And so we'll always just look at, and Shopify will look at just covering 80% of that. That's what we'll always do. And there's that top 20% that we won't ever be able to cater for, and that's where our partners kind of come in. But yeah, I'm really, really excited about that, and I think it's been a long time coming, to be honest. And we've seen some really good B2B implementations on Shopify, but we do want to do better.
And 100%. And I think going back to Sky's suggestion, thanks for that suggestion, Sky. I think obviously the roots of OD and Chill were pre-COVID, at least, was kind of in a more social setting with a few more people around, a few drinks, a bit of food, and some interesting chats. And hopefully, when we can all get in a room together at scale back in Singapore, maybe we can do something a bigger kind of chat on marketplaces. But talking about your site,
we'll get in trouble.
We might have to have a 5-second delay or something just to edit out redact the controversial bits. But
yeah, I haven't sworn so far, which is good. I actually come from a marketplace background myself, right? So like Rakuten and Lazada and Alibaba. So I have strongly held opinions, not necessarily loosely. Anyway, yeah.
But talking of your side hustle, so obviously I've experienced that firsthand. Good to be here. Very tasty pizzas. How did that come about? What was the thinking there? Yeah,
so a few years ago, I left Lazada and I was about to join PayPal, or a business that PayPal were in the process of acquiring, and because they acquired this business when I signed my paperwork, there was a big paperwork issue, and there were visa issues, and it meant that my start date got pushed back by 5 months or so. So I had a lot of downtime, and in that time I played a lot of FIFA. Played a lot of video games. Kind of just didn't really make myself very productive. One of the things, being obviously from the UK, I travel around Europe a lot. Pizza was one of my all-time favorite things to eat. Whenever I would go over to Europe in my previous role, I'd have pizza for lunch and for dinner, a bit of weirdo, to be honest. And when I moved to Singapore, the fact that I couldn't find good pizza anywhere used to really upset me. And so then I decided I'm going to learn how to make it myself, and I did. And it was really bad at first, so it was awful. But I kind of got obsessed with it, so I kept trying to figure out how to do it, and just kind of self-learning. And over the years, I since joined PayPal, left PayPal at Shopify, I'd continued to do it. A few years ago, I was back in London. With my wife, we were just visiting family, and we were in John Lewis, and we saw a portable wood-fired pizza oven. And I was like, right, we're getting that. And so we got that, put it in, we took it apart, put it in my wife's suitcase. She had to leave a bunch of her stuff behind. It's incredible she's still with me. And we brought it over. And then we would just have kind of private parties, friends coming around, or friends of friends, and we'd do pizza. And it got really good. And so a lot of my, before I joined Shopify, I was friends with a lot of people that worked at Shopify. And because we just met during my Easy Shift days, and just being in the same industry, and they were always pushing me to do it. And it was only when lockdown happened and travel disappeared that we really decided to do it. And so we through a mutual friend, we got introduced to a bar that wanted to host the pizza pop-up. My friend just kind of put me in and said, oh yeah, my buddy will do it. He's got this thing. And they didn't really tell me about it until it was all agreed. And it was like, okay, now you've got to do it. So we just kind of dove in. But it's been so much fun to do. So the concept is we run a pizza pop-up, either at bars, craft beer bars mainly around Singapore, where we sell Neapolitan style pizza that we make in a fired oven, so 500 degrees, and because I always try to replicate. I used to love going to Crepe Brewery in Hackney in London, where I would just go there at 12:01 midday, have a beer, have a pizza, hang out with friends all day. That was a great Saturday afternoon for me. So trying to replicate that sort of thing in Singapore, and we felt that we didn't have that. And so then we had to figure out, okay, how are we going to take orders? So I was like, I'll set up a Shopify store. So set up a Shopify store, figured out how hard it can be for a merchant. So I got so much merchant empathy by doing that. But Shopify is great because they really support entrepreneurship when you work for the company, and so you get a lot of kind of guidance, and everybody's always willing to help and stuff. So we run a few pop-ups at a few different bars around Singapore. During lockdown, we were selling, we were doing pickup and delivery just from our apartment, and I think what you've seen this year, people can't travel, they can't leave Singapore. Everyone's desperate for something new, and so because of that, we've become we're lucky enough to be quite popular, and we sell out every time we go live with a pre-order run of pizzas. I have to say my pizza is the best in Singapore, but like I mean, you know, it's but it doesn't that barrier is not very high. So like, you know, and
they are very good. I can vouch for that.
Yeah, and I think what you see, people can't travel. And I think if I was traveling for work or traveling for leisure, I probably wouldn't have done this. And people are really looking for new things to try in such a small city state. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been so much fun to do, just start a little side business from scratch. And it gives you just a whole nother perspective, on kind of everything. Like you look in the F&B industry, it's just so wildly different from this industry that we're in. A lot of them use e-commerce platforms, yes, but the way decisions are made, the way you negotiate, like I come from partnerships world, right, where everything is like fair, like equal value creation, and it's all about like shared interests. F&B is not like that. It's like it's really, really not, and culturally it's very different, and it's been really fun to kind of to dive into that and see the ins and outs of how that world works. It's been a lot of fun. Just kind of, we're doing some pizzas this weekend actually.
Okay.
Feel
free to do a plug.
Well, I mean, we're already sold out. So, but
okay, all right.
It's called Domate's Pizza. Any of the branding that looks good was done by my wife. My wife did all of that. She's a designer, and the photographer. So anything that looks good about it is down to her. Like if you ever feel like having a really good pizza, check it out.
Yeah, I can definitely recommend. Definitely, I'm quite gutted I missed out on this weekend actually. And have you found that like a good decompression away from the day job, or have you actually been this was way harder than I thought it was, or has it been just nice to have something different? That's it. Like it is harder, 100% harder. Like it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I'm the sort of person that dives in and then figures out what went wrong afterwards. But it just means that if you're having a bad day at work or something frustrates you during the day, as everybody has, like you can have the dream job, but you're not going to have bad days. It just means you can dive into something else. And for me, like even just for my mental state, it's been like game changing. And it's good to just have something else to dive into. And so now it's such a Shopify thing to do, but now I just always constantly preach entrepreneurship to people I work with. And I'm like, oh yeah, you should do something on the side, because it's good to just have something else to focus on. And even if it doesn't need to be huge, it doesn't need to make tons of money, because like, you know, whilst it is profitable, it's not going to make me a millionaire, but it is fun. It's something to dive into. Decompression is really the right word. It's a completely different thing to do. And I felt it's been really beneficial. It's just something different to focus your mind on when something at work is getting on your nerves. Cool, man. Well, listen, I don't know if anyone has any other questions. We're almost coming to the end of our slot today. But yeah, thanks very much for your time. Thanks for joining us. Great to hear all the insights.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Like, I'd love it if we could do it again, but with drinks. And then I'll probably say things I'll regret a little bit more than I already do. But it's been a lot of fun. Like, I really do like chewing the fat around the industry, and I think like there's a lot that we haven't really touched on in this region, not just in e-commerce, but the general digital landscape, and like we always say Southeast Asia, but every country is also wildly different, and Singapore's just one part of that. And so yeah, Sky, maybe we'll have to do it again and just talk about that market in particular. But no, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure. Well, good luck with Domate's Pizza this weekend, and hopefully I will see you for a beer very soon.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Cool. Thanks, Neel. Take it easy. Bye-bye.